This is the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is producer, director, and co writer Johnny Martin. And we're going to be talking about his new action thriller entitled Off the Grid, which stars Josh Duhamel and Greg Kinnear. Welcome to the show, Johnny.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're
The whole film.
the whole cast. I wish they were all in the room with
I
you.
know, me too.
It would be nice. This is a very different type of film, and that's I always love those. When I saw this come across my desk, I thought this looks like a really interesting film. This is one I would like to see and talk about. So, and it didn't disappoint at all. So our audience knows what we're talking about. Can you please give us a synopsis of what Off the Grid is all about?
Sure, the story's about many things. One is about what it would take if you had to leave everything you had and escape from the world in order to save the world. And when you invent a cold fusion that fits in the palm of your hand, and they want to turn it into a weapon, you have no choice but to take yourself out of everywhere in the world. And he lives in this small little town with people, can't get to know anyone. He's afraid of being in danger until they find it. And it's
You know what? I'm still having you froze up a little bit on me, but we'll move forward on this.
got it. You
Uh,
got it.
you co-wrote this with your writing partner, who is James Agnew. How did this concept come to both of you?
Well, I give Jim all the credit on this one. Basically, what it is that I have done dramas and thrillers before as a director, and I knew that it was time for me to do an action movie since I come from that world. And I just want I did it. And the biggest thing with action for me is having the character's depth and really show emotion of the characters that drive the action. And I really haven't read anything. So I called up Jim one day and I said, hey, we got to figure out a script that we could do that really shows the character and drive him into action, that maybe he doesn't use a weapon. Maybe he's so smart that he doesn't even know how to fight, but he has to figure everything out through his brain. And Jim said, I got this. And he went ahead and after he got done writing it, we went through over and over and over again till we really figured the right way of doing this.
And then I mean, because there are so many, and I really hate give I don't want to give anything away, but there are so many fascinating aspects of Josh Duhamel's character, and how uh, how he decides to protect himself, and yet he doesn't want to use violence. And I thought that was an interesting way of doing this film, because so many films or action films are just full of violence, lots and lots of violence. And this one was was not as much. I mean, there's things in it that are action packed, but it's not a lot of violence itself that's gratuitous in the film. How did you manage, or was that a conscious decision not to do that?
It sure was. I mean, I am so tired of seeing the John Wick films of the world where 200 guys die and he has enough bullets to kill 300 people in one gun. And it just, and you start developing that the villains of the movies don't become a character. They just become an invisible entity that just die and you have no emotion to them. And I just wanted every death. I wanted everyone to know the characters I have. And then I thought, let's do this thing creatively where he never has a gun, doesn't know anything but his brain. And basically, let's have him create off the wild these weapons. And basically, when we wrote the script, we didn't have that in there, but we had a slot for it. And I went to Home Depot and I took a cart and started throwing things in my cart and started realizing, okay, I need to make sure that if the audience is going to accept this, they have to work. So I went home and tried every one of these that you see in the movie and experimented. I would send it to Josh and say, see, man, I think this would do perfectly. And I think this is something that you would create in the woods. And that's why we created the convenience store, really to set that up so you could see that everything that he uses for a weapon later that he's forced to use, not that he wants to use, it's just a defensive mechanism to keep people away from it, and him trying not to kill anyone, to where it gets to a point where he needs to now make these weapons and need to defend himself, not only himself, but the people in the town.
Right. And the relationships that you've developed in this film, they're already, they're very um, deep. Let's put it that way. You know, that you don't see that often either in action films where the relationships are developed on a deeper level and you care about the characters and what's going on for them. Talk about that process too, because that's unusual also in this kind of an action film.
Yeah, it really is. And it was really important to me to find out who's telling the story and to make sure the audience knows not only who they are, but what their past is and who they are. And I did that when I casted. After I casted, these roles, I would call up before I even told them that they had the job, I'd call them up and ask them about their family life, ask them about what they like to do. And I really got in a heavy conversation with all the actors to find out if they are a good soul. Because even though they might play a villain in the movie, I just wanted to know that they were a good soul where they could really bring that part out of it. And that's like when Greg signed on, I said no other villain I wanted than Greg Kinnear, because if I can make a great guy that everyone loves into a guy that is forced to be a villain, that doesn't want to and is out of his element, that maybe that could be entertainment where the audience could follow every character. And that goes with Maria as well. Maria is just this kind-hearted soul that I fell in love with who she is as a person. And I said, you are the one to express it. She wasn't written as Colombian, but when I heard how much care she has in her heart with her voice, and I said, you got to go Colombian. And she went off on her accent and her language, and I didn't know what she was saying, but I thought, man, that's a driving force.
I love it. I love the fact that you wanted to know what the actor's soul was all about. That's a very wonderful way to decide who you want in your film because you're going to be with them for quite a while filming, and it's really important to have like-minded people together that you're working with. So I think that's really kudos to you. I have not heard a director say that before, and I think that's quite beautiful. So thank you for that. That comes through also. I love Greg Kinnear. I also love Josh Duhamel too, but Greg Kinnear, and you're right, his character he's supposed to be a bad guy, but he does play it because you do like him, because it's not only because it's Greg Kinnear, it's the way he plays that character, because it's like he doesn't really want, you get the feeling he doesn't really want to have to be the bad guy in this film. I mean, just in general, that's his job. He has to do what he's supposed to do, but you feel he's very reluctant to do that in this film. So how did that come about? That duplicity in this character.
Well, to me, a villain could be many things, and I didn't want a guy just to have a dirty look on his face and walk with the broad shoulders and all that. I wanted to have a bad reason to be a villain, and his reasoning was greed. He was jealous. Greed and jealousy is the whole reason that turned him into a villain, because he was jealous. He wasn't smarter than Josh's character, and greed because he wanted the money to show, not because he had his cash, so he could show the world how smart he is. And I think if you make a villain that way, his simplicity to him comes out even more. And that's why I wanted to really show the irritation of him being in the woods with bugs. And he's so out of his element that he's so uncomfortable being there. And when he holds a gun, he doesn't even know how to hold it right. That's why this scene at the end, you'll see that it's a mistake what happens. And it's because he's so out of his element.
Well, now that you bring up the woods, let's talk about that because that's another character in the film. And I heard you had some great difficulties filming in what, Mississippi? Is that where you were? Is that where you ended up filming?
Yeah, I basically started this movie in Italy. So we're set to go. I scouted, I wrote it for Italy. Then they called me and said, Johnny, sorry, we're going to Spain. So I rewrote the script 20 more times, got it ready, found the woods, because woods are number 5 on the call sheet to me. To me, I have to make sure the woods are beautiful, but not in a way to where it distracts you away from what the characters are saying, and and make it not so dense, to make it have a little bit of depth to mountains and all that. And it's very hard. So then when they called me and said, you're going to Mississippi now, it's like, oh my God, I found the perfect woods. So I went there, found this one square big area that had mountains, that had the space between the trees, that had the beauty, but not where it was distracting. And they said, well, Johnny, you really shouldn't shoot there because there's snakes, there's chiggers, and there's ticks all over. I said, okay. And so the producer said, don't worry, we'll hire a snake wrangler. And thank God we did, because there was like 20 snakes a day that we'd find,
Oh my
and
God.
ticks, chiggers. I
Yikes.
got hit by chiggers in the stomach that swelled up like a balloon. I was getting shots every day to try to fight my chigger thing going on. But the woods were a star, and it was very important. And Josh and Greg and we all stayed in the woods together, and we all fought the elements. And we're really glad that we did, because that forestry, I think, was perfect for the story I was trying to tell.
So it ended up being the perfect place for you to film this movie,
Sure
despite
was.
all of those challenges that you had, for
Yeah,
sure.
sure was.
You started your career as a stuntman at 18 and as an actor and a stuntman. And I recently had someone else on my show. I can't remember what his name was, but he was also started his career as a stuntman and moved into directing. What was that transition like, and why did you decide that that's the career trajectory that you decided to go on?
Well, I have to go back till I was 8 years old, and I've done many of the
Hey.
storyline. And basically, I loved cars, hot rods, and all that. So I'd go to the car wash every day on my bike. And one day, this guy pulls up in this beautiful car, and it was all crashed up. And I just said, "Sir, what happened to your car?" He goes, "Well, this isn't a car. Her name is Eleanor, and I'm a director, producer, financier, distributor, and my name's H.P. Halicki. I made a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds." And I said, "Oh my God," I said, "I want to be like you." And he goes, "Well, listen, train this." And he told me everything to do. And he goes, "When you turn 18, come and see me." So I turned 18. I trained hard, and I learned how to be an actor, a stuntman. And he told me though when I was 8, and I'll never forget it. He said the key to becoming something in this business is be a filmmaker. Don't be a stuntman. Don't be a director. Be an overall filmmaker. Do know everyone's job. And so I did everything I could. I read everything I could. And when I turned 18, I went to LA. Couldn't wait. And I found out he gets killed in the movie Gone in 60 Seconds Part 2. So I didn't know anybody. And so I just said, okay, well, I'm athletic and I'm tough and I'll get into stunts first so I can meet as many people as I can, directors and producers. And then a few years go by and I get asked to coordinate a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds. And it was unbelievable that HB from up in heaven kind of took care of me when he said he would. And that's when I really knew that it was time for me to start getting into producing and directing.
And you won Best Stunt Coordinator of the Year for the film Gone in 60
Yeah.
Seconds.
Yeah, it was an amazing feat.
Yeah, and also you received a Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for your work on X-Men First Class.
Yes.
So you've worked with some really wonderful actors, Nicolas Cage, Angelina Jolie. I think you also have worked with, gosh, you've worked with a lot of great ones. Al
Al
Pacino, is that
Pacino.
right?
Yeah, Al Pacino. I got to direct him, and that was the best experience and learning experience of my life. It really was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was it like working with Al Pacino, the great Al Pacino? And you're still, relatively new being a director at that point, I would think. And so and that was, what movie was that? Hangman?
Hangman. Yeah,
Hangman. Yeah.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit what it was like. And Donald Sutherland, you worked with him. I mean, you've worked with some great, great actors. So tell me about Al Pacino. Let's talk a little bit about the great Al
Well,
Pacino.
who would have thought I could get Al Pacino to let me direct him? And he accepted a meeting, and I went to his house, and he just looked me deep in my eyes, and I just told him how much I cared about this movie and how much I care about him, and he just said, he goes, "I don't hear half the things you're saying, but I could see the passion in your eyes, and I just want to be a part of you." And from that point on, we're still great friends today. And he just did amazing things. And for all the actors out there, he called me up one day and I had to fly back home on to prep. And he said, "What's this character like? Tell me her backstory." And I said, "You mean the one that has one line, 'Hello, sir'?" He goes, "Yeah, tell me everything about her." So I told her she was divorced, her family, and she moved here to become a cop, and she was struggling. And he goes, "Okay." So he walks on the set. He doesn't say a word to her. He just puts his hand on her shoulder and looks at her with his sensitive eyes and walks away. And that's all he needed to really get that out of the character. And I learned so much from him. He was a terrific man.
Wow, that's a great story. That's a really great story. So we really learn why Al Pacino is so great
Yes.
because he really cares deeply about every per- character in that script, obviously, and wants to delve deep into them. I mean, that's amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, he sat in the editing room almost every day. He would come in for a few hours and never have a note, just wanted to give me the vibe of presence around the editing room. And to have an actor do that, no one does that. And not Al Pacino. But yes, he did.
Wow, wow, that's great. That's great. And Donald Sutherland, the wonderful late great Donald Sutherland, what was it like working with him? Because he's also pretty amazing.
Well, Donald came into the set and he goes, "From now on, your name is not Johnny. Your name is Governor." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "So now let act. So you got to act like one." I'm like, yes, sir. So let's do this. And basically, that's how it was. The whole entire shoot with him is that he was very precise of the script, and he had part two and the prequel already in his head to where he could develop this character better. And so we would talk about what he was like as a kid and further. And he molded this character into what he is. And I just said, look, let me roll this camera. You do what you got to do, and I don't care about 12 minutes. You do what you got to do. And it was just incredible to watch. I even found myself as a fan watching while I was directing.
I would imagine it'd be very hard, you know, watching these people that you've looked up to all your life, and then all of a
Yes.
sudden you are the director of these amazing actors. What a wonderful life that is. And then, well, let's go back to Josh Duhamel and Greg Kinnear because, uh, again, they're wonderful actors. And what was it like working with Josh in particular? Because this role seems like it's tailor made for him, totally tailor made for him. So, what was it like working with him? And also, in addition, let's go. Well, answer that, and then I'll go to my next question afterwards.
Okay, well, honestly, the script was kind of written for Josh and Mike. When I heard that he was off the grid in Minnesota, I'm like, I think this is who I want to do. Let's do. Every script I go out to actors with, I write it for that person and who that character is, so they can relate to it better. I never just send a script out because I think it's great. I make sure that it's rewritten every time I go out to an actor to fit that character more. And Josh was so important. And what's good and bad about what happened with me and Josh is that the movie got pushed almost a year. And so we had a relationship for 2 years, and I thought he was going to walk away, and I was nervous. But what that 2 years gave us was a bond that we would talk every week and go over how every scene could be better and better and better. And we just worked so hard on the script together that 2 years turned out to be something that made our bond and the film even better. So I'm really appreciative that we even worked next to Josh because he is a kind soul and he is that guy that cares so much. He cares so much about what the audience thinks. And Greg, adding him to the link is just, it was like a brotherhood.
Well, I think that's why we like Greg Kinnear and Josh Duhamel because we do feel their genuineness and their soul. I mean, actors, it is about bearing your soul as an actor, I believe. You know, if the good ones, the good ones do. Not all of the rest do. Some don't at all, and we don't have a feeling for who they may be. But the really good actors, we do. We have a sense of their being, of who they are, because it's the light within that transports outward, and that's what we see on the screen, and that's what makes movies so magical is
Yes.
when you can catch that lightning in the bottle, as they say, but the light of the actors that are, in the film. And so that's really important,
Yes.
very important. And you're able to do that. And Greg has that too, as we said earlier, to play, the bad guy and still like the bad guy. That's a hard thing to do. And so,
Yeah, I'm very grateful for Greg because he would come to the set and say, I think we need to put more lines here that help us with the storyline later. And he came so prepared every single day that we would always spend a half hour to an hour before every shoot, which this was such a hard schedule, 19-day shoot. It was so difficult. And then we'd take an hour out of that day to really make sure that what we were shooting was the right thing we needed to do. And I think having Greg there really prepared every single day was what helped us.
oh, definitely. It always does, especially when you have such a short shooting schedule. That's say that fast 5 times.
Yeah, really. Trying
Uh,
to do it.
I know it's hard to do it, and that I talk to a lot of independent. That's what I do. I talk to
Yeah.
independent and documentary filmmakers, and well, documentary filmmakers have totally different schedules because they can go years and years putting a documentary together, but independent filmmakers do not. And so, 19 days is about the average, it seems like anymore, unfortunately, but you got to do it in that tight budget. So speaking about that, so you have this great scene or scenes with Josh Duhamel on a motorcycle. So let's talk a little bit about that because I'm sure your background as a stuntman came in handy filming that scene and several others, I'm sure too.
Yeah, basically I always make sure that to me I'd rather lessen a stunt and put an actor's eyes in the scene than having a stunt man doubling the character. I mean, there's more ways because my belief is action is 80% emotional and 20% physical. And if you could have the actors deliver the action by a look, by the fear in his eyes, and then looking over and never making a piece of metal, a car, a star, and always make it driven to the actor's emotion. And that's what I told Josh. And I said, listen, I have one of the best bike guys in the business, Jimmy Roberts, who's trained Tom Cruise and others, that I think that let's go out with him and we'll learn how to slide a bike. But I'm going to have cars driving all around you. And I want you on that bike the whole time. I said, it's going to be scary. I said, but trust me, I'll hire the best of the best to be there. And he trusted me. And when he got out there, he's all, are you serious? Am I really going to do this? And I said, dude, you're going to do it. Here we go. And I fired him up and we did this scene that was, I mean, we had cars, I mean, stuff I even cut out of the movie that cars were getting so close and he got really close to the cars. And it was really, it really helped me really show that the scene's not about action. It's more about a guy trying to get out. And that's what I was trying to relate to the audience.
And it comes across great. It really does. Because audience are not dumb. We know when there's a stunt man who's
Yeah.
taking over, and that's fine. We don't want to hurt the actors, obviously, and you still need to have that, uh, you know, that action in it and feeling on the edge of your seat at what's going to happen next. So yeah, you definitely need it. But I didn't feel that there was a stunt person in this role, so that was nice, and that came across in it. Johnny, what director do you admire, and who do you try to emulate? Do you have a favorite director?
Yeah, and that's who I pretty much give a special thanks in all my movies to this gentleman. And that's Tony Scott, the late great Tony Scott,
Yeah, the late great
who I
Tony
was
Scott.
so fortunate to work for him. And I instead of all the stunt guys would go back to the trailer, I would sneak back and hide behind his chair. And he'd keep catching me there, and I told him that I want to be a filmmaker, and he would take the time to look back and tell me, "Did you understand that?" And he told me what I should look for as a director, and how to make movies that's entertaining the audience, and how to even shoot in short days, and so I took so much from him that I did an homage to him in this movie. I wanted to pay.
And we have a little glitch again. Let's hope Johnny comes back. Oh, darn. I want to hear what he had to say. Okay. I think unfortunately we're going to have to end this interview but it's appeared.
Great.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, there you are.
Giselle, I'm glad you're recording this. I don't know. It just went. You froze up and then this went.
I said, she's really interested. She keeps looking at me.
Well, I am interested in what you have to say for sure. Oh well, these things happen. Well, anyhow, we were coming to the close of our interview
Okay.
anyhow, but hopefully we captured what you had to say about Tony Scott and how he influenced your career. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man, and
Sure
I
was.
never met him personally, but I loved the work that he did through the years also too. So, Johnny, I wish you much success with Off the Grid. Where can people see it?
You could get it on demand on all the sites, Amazon, Apple, and it's in limited theaters right now. But please go out and see this movie. We put a lot of hard work, and I hope the audience please understands that we're in a time in this world where it's very hard to make movies, and we do our very, very best. You may want to see something bigger and better, but it's so hard to do our best. And I hope you could just sit back and enjoy the movie the way it is.
I think people will sit back and enjoy the movie as it is. So everybody, hey, this is a great time of year we love action films in the summertime. So this is a great time to watch Off the Grid. We wish you much success with the film, Johnny, and I look forward to having you back on the show with your next project.
Thank you, Jan, so much for caring about the movie too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.